Good evening, everyone. I am here to help you. How are you? Are you feeling okay? No, really, are you feeling okay? Has anyone even taken the time this week to ask you if you're feeling okay? Because you look troubled. It's not easy going through life sometimes and feeling pressured, feeling bullied, feeling outclassed. Some people call it one-upmanship. It's a nice way to say I just put you down. We don't want to talk about the subject too much because, let's be honest, we all know what bullying is. I recently told a very old friend whose opinion I really value. I told her if I ever bullied her, and I know I did, directly and indirectly, when we were children, if I ever caused you any pain, I'm sorry. I really am sorry. And she was not dismissive, but understanding, and I'm very accepting. I'm very open, and I was so impressed. And I really do remember what she went through, and I addressed it. If I went through what she went through, I don't think I could survive. I told her I was bullied and I bullied. I lived in a very violent world at one time growing up, and there was no solace and no peace for me anywhere. I would come home to angry and violent situations that were intolerable to deal with. There was just no way to get around them. We lived in a small house. There was just no way to get away from the problems of the day. No quiet place of refuge. And I'd go to school and I tell my kids stories and they go, it was nothing like that when we were growing up. So my experiences are nothing like my children's. I would explain to my children one day of my school experience, just one day, and tell them I had to do that, then I had to get up and do it again the next day. And they just sit there and go, that's insane. It was a different time. And I have regrets of things I did, and I have nightmares of things that were done. And I try not to let those things define me as a person now. I try to use them as historical references, and then I drop it and I move on. But this friend of mine I was talking to, well, let me put it in perspective. She was really shy. She was quiet. And she had a relative die. She had a relative, it was, I think, a cousin, who was a few years older than her, and he died in an accident. We went to church together, and she was very mournful and very troubled by his passing. And time had went on, and you could tell she was even more withdrawn and more quiet and even more shy. Now we're talking, I was probably between 10 or 12 when this happened. And one day in Sunday school, we were asked about things that bothered us or things that, were troubling us. And the Sunday school teacher, who was a local pharmacist, he asked us, what was on our minds or, what kind of issues we had. And she said that she missed her cousin. She was, still feeling sad over her cousin dying. And I'm not exaggerating this. He rolled his eyes and put his hands on the table. Oh, do we have to keep talking about this? We got to move on from this. You got to get over this. And even though I was a young kid, I swear to God, I remember stepping outside myself and looking around the room at the guys that were a little older than me and the teacher going, oh, couldn't believe she wasted their time bringing this up again. We're so sick of hearing about this. And I've never forgotten that. I'm 47. This happened almost 40 years ago. And I have it etched in my memory so deeply. I remember every single look on every person's face in that room, and I remember her putting her head down, folding her arms. I remember exactly what she was wearing. Her hair over her face, putting her head down. And can you just be quiet because we need to move on? The class doesn't want to discuss this, for the umpteenth time. You got to get over this. And you could just see her shut down. Whatever it was inside her that silly her made her want to bring that up in a church Sunday school classroom about grief and loss. Whatever possessed her. To bring that up. Oh my. That was gone. Like that. Took care of that. Erase that. Roll the tape back. Don't worry. She won't bring that up again. Because nobody wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear about a little kid grieving over the loss of a relative. That's at church. And I'm not knocking church. I'm not. Because people are different all over. So you can't judge the whole thing by one incident or one person. And I'm going to juxtapose this discussion with a more positive look at religion through this book that I'm going to talk about. Because what I'm trying to get people to do is not hate religion, not blindly follow religion. Think, people. Look around. Look outside yourself and see what's going on around you. And when it's wrong, it's wrong. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter who it is, and it doesn't matter what authority they have over you. It's wrong. I wanted to tell her how I felt about that moment when I was talking to her recently, and I couldn't bring it up. And to be honest, I kind of hope she never sees this video. I don't want to hurt her if this brings something up that she really doesn't want to talk about. I don't want her to see this, and it would just be another thing that hurt her. Another thing for her to remember how horrible people can be. So, part of me hopes she doesn't see this, and I'm not going to share it with her. If she is watching, she knows who I'm talking about, and she knows in my heart that I love her as a friend, and I care about her, and I know she was tormented way beyond human endurance. I told you one story, but that's because I'm not going to, in my mind, if I tell you more, I'm degrading her. But I went to school with Carrie, several Carries. And the girl I'm telling you about right now isn't even the girl I know who got tormented the worst in my school. She's probably second to the worst. I know a girl who's tormented even more. And I can say with a clear conscience that I never tormented that girl. I was kind to her right up the last time I saw her when we graduated. But the other girl, we were friends, and we did things after church at her family's lake, and we interacted more socially, like little boys and girls do, and we were around each other on an outside school, outside church, like at social functions thing. And boys do pick on girls, girls do pick on boys. And I've always felt that maybe I overstepped and been a little tormenting, not been as understanding, as kind as I could have been. But she's assured me that I'm somebody she wants to keep in touch with as a friend. And this is where I want to go with this. Okay, so we told a church story about how this girl was basically shunned or shut down by people, didn't want to hear what she had to say. We're going to fast forward to high school. And I'm sitting in a classroom, and this girl suddenly blurts out a pretty abrasive attack on one of the class students that I would label kind of as a steady bully with people, a little arrogant prick, to be honest. And she kind of lit him up. And then she just went, she lit him up, and then she went dead silent. And this fella couldn't understand. What? Me? You have these kind of feelings and issues towards moi? I'm such a great guy. And I had to explain to him, people kind of think you're a shit. Pardon my French. She doesn't like you because of things you've done to her in the past. You really tormented her and a lot of my friends, and we don't like you for what you did. You're kind of like an arrogant little twit. And he was dumbfounded. But here's the thing. I've always been able to do this. I stepped outside myself in that moment and saw that I was on the nerd side of the class, if you can believe that. And everybody sitting around me was looking to them, and everybody on that side of the classroom was looking over at us, wide-eyed and confused. The words were coming out of my mouth like, you do know you tormented the living piss out of this girl, and she's really had enough of you, and she's telling you that she's had enough. And they were looking back, all of them in the classroom, you know, the popular kids, whatever you want to call them, the jocks, whatever, with complete shock and dismay. You got to be kidding me. We're not like that at all. And I really realized where I was. I realized where I was sitting. I realized I was the only one that could communicate with them and explain that, you know, people think you're an idiot, you know, socially. And I just couldn't get them to understand it. The words were coming out of my mouth, but they weren't registering. At least I don't think they were. Now, maybe over time, no, I take that back, because I went to a class reunion and the guy was still a jerk. I can tell you that story. That's a good one. Okay. So here we are at high school. The guy's a jerk. And the girl stood up for herself. But she started standing up for herself. And things started to change. She started finding her voice. She started to date. She started to approach boys and ask them out. She started getting involved in social events. She started to go out. She started to visit people, go out with friends, go to parties, get out of the house, talk, speak up, stand up for herself. She started to fight back. Sure as you and I put on boxing gloves and duke it out, she started to fight back. Never touched another human being, but she became a fighter. And her life changed. So let's roll the tape forward a little more. 15, 16 years later, I'm at a reunion and I don't do well in social situations at all. I don't want to be there. I'm not comfortable at all. I plan on drinking until I pass out. I don't want to be there. I'd rather go to a funeral than a class reunion. I'd rather go to a funeral of one of my best friends, Paul Bear, speak at the funeral, help clean up, help do dishes, pay for the food, everything, than go to a class reunion for 2 hours. I've only been to 2 and I hated both of them and I'll never go back. Of course, I'm not invited anymore, probably because of what happens in this story. I'm not invited either, which is just, you know, what most people don't know is when you're passive aggressive or antisocial, you can win even when you lose. So not getting invited to the party is actually a win because I don't want to go. And I haven't been invited. Now, the next one is next year, 2016. And God forbid any of those, I'm going to bleep it out, don't worry. Any of those call and invite me, they can go themselves. I'm not going. Just letting you know. So let's not waste our time. Okay. That's fun. I think when we do these kind of videos, we have to have fun. So I hope you had a laugh with that. So 15 years later, I run into this dork who can't understand why this girl thinks he's a bully. Why she has no use for him and why she just blurted out in class. We walk up to the bar, and I ask the bartender for a beer. Just give me a draft. My throat's really dry and my mouth's dry. I'm not enjoying, like I said, a social situation. I don't like it. So he hands me a beer, and I go, hey, thanks a lot. I reach in my pocket, and I put the beer in my mouth. I take a couple really good drinks and, get my mouth and my throat wet. Because I'm all dry. But I'm reaching in my pocket to get some money, throw it in a tip jar. Well, this doofus, who can't understand, life, he's in a three-piece suit, I'm just in a polo hanging out like I am right now. He's in a three-piece suit. He's trying to impress me. He pulls out his wallet, and he's shocked and dismayed that I would have the audacity to take a drink and not pay for it with, even though it was free drinks, you throw a tip. And he reaches in his wallet, pulls out like $1 and puts it in the tip jar. And I look at him doing this, and it's social. It's social stratification all over again. I'm here. You're down here because you're not smart enough to know how to tip. You've never been to a bar of quality. You don't know how to tip. You're just socially inept. I'll take care of it, and I'll tip for the Gentile who doesn't know how to socially do these things because he's some backwards white trash. I'll graciously put my tip in there for you. Never took his eyes off me. Took the money out of his wallet. Shock on his face and awe. Oh my God, it's so disgusting. Never took his eyes off me. Put the money in the jar. Never took his eyes off me. Put his wallet away in shock. Now, you don't know me that well. But one thing some people may know about me is that was a horrible mistake. I dedicate this one to my friend from school he tormented. I looked at him and I went like, what was that? What was that? Like, what was that about? And he didn't say anything. He just, oh, it's okay. I'm just taking care of it. Wait, you think I don't know how to take care of that man? You think I come here with no money on me? You don't think I could take care of that guy? I need you to tip for me. I need you to. You want to hold my fork and my spoon while I'm eating too? You want to get my napkin and dab my face off? What is this? What are you my dad or something? What are you, a moron? What the hell's the matter with you? You don't think I could take care of this guy? What the hell's the matter with you? Get the hell away from me. Don't talk to me again the rest of the night. There's something wrong with you. You need to wake up, boy. Because you're making a horrible mistake right now. So I figured I offended the bartender at the very least. And I found out later my buddy said the bartender told him, I like that guy. I wish I had a son-in-law just like him. That guy's great. He's hilarious. So I felt pretty vindicated about that. And I did take care of the bartender. I pulled out a nice $5 bill in front of him and his wife later and said, hey, see this? Look, watch. Ooh, is it okay? You approve? You approve? I also tormented the hell out of him in many other ways. I bullied him. I tormented and I bullied him the rest of the evening. I tormented him so poorly that I think it's pretty clear that they'll never invite me back. I think I offended enough people that night. I had a good time with that friend from school, the girl. We had a great time. We got a little. Anyway, we had a good time. She's married, I'm married, nothing happened, but we had a great time. I saw her after that. After that reunion, I saw her. Several of the girls I went to school with are like teachers, or their kids all go to school together. So we were at this competition, and all our kids were there. And she walks right in, and these other girls I went to school with, and they're all acting like they don't know me and everything. She walks right up and starts talking about her. She starts talking. Her and my wife would be like best friends if they met. And she starts talking to my wife and never brings up the reunion or anything. And because my wife wasn't with me, I wouldn't let her go. I'd say, she's not going to this. And listen to the people. Oh, I know what Mike was like back then. He was so disgusting. How could you marry him and have children with him? Well, they did that at my 5-year, and I was like, don't talk to my wife like that. Because I don't talk to you like that. Most people don't realize when they do something. You bring it on yourself. I know this is going to sound insane. I want to tell you something, and this is strictly some weird religious thing of mine that I've gotten from my Christian upbringing. Turn the other cheek. Somebody hits you, turn the other cheek. Offer them the other cheek. And treat people how you want to be treated. And you say, okay, I got to pause here. Okay, sorry for that break. Battery almost went dead. Okay. So where was I? So we're at this function, and my wife and this girl would have been like best friends. They still could. I mean, they could talk, and they'd get along great. And she's just, Mike, and how the kids and all that. And it's like, she forgave me for my bad behavior. Of course, we're all bad sometimes. None of us are perfect. And, I don't find courage in liquor. I just found liquor is the quickest way to get the hell out of a social situation. They'll ask you to leave or get, and I'm not like that. I'm very quiet. When I drink, I don't change behaviors or anything. I just wanted to get blitzed, forget about that night, and go home and never remember it. So, anyway, this brings us up to date. I talked recently to my friend about bullying, being bullied, and being a bully. And I think we all cross that line at times. And I was amazed by her resiliency as a human being. Her faith and her steadfast devotion to the fact that she loved herself. She didn't hate herself. She knew she had gifts to offer the world and talents. She knew she was special in her own way. And she never let bad things that happened to her in life, bullying or otherwise, define her as a human being. Now, it affects her. She's a changed person because of it than what she could have been. But she didn't let it define her as a human being. When people look at her, they don't say, oh, that's the victim. When people look at her, they say, that's the teacher. That's the mother. That's the wife. That's the devoted friend. That's the kind person. That's a special lady right there. She's helped a lot of people. That's what I'm saying. She is not defined by the negatives that the world put on her. She is defined by all the positive things she's brought to the world with her own hands. Her accomplishments, her achievements, the love that she shares. These are positive things that she's brought to the world. And that is what defines her. And if any of my special friends from South Range Penal Colony are watching, that, my friend, is where you don't get it. You never will. You just don't get it. My friend understood what Hemingway said about courage and guts. Courage and guts can be defined in the human experience as grace under pressure. You've got to find it. You've got to find your inner peace. And you've got to show the world that you're better than that. And you have to do it every day. Every single day. Now, where I'd like to go and finish this talk is years ago, as an adult. This is after the Columbine shootings. My mother-in-law, she's deeply religious and she likes to give us religious literature to read, and most of the time it's agenda-oriented, and I'm very not political, and I don't really care what anybody has to say politically with their agendas. I don't even watch the news. I really do not watch the news. Haven't for years. It's so offensive to listen to pundits talk. I think he meant this. I think. That's not news. Enough said. But she sent me this little tiny hardback. Nice little dust jacket. And it was a book called The Wounded Spirit, and it's by a Christian writer, Frank Peretti. Now, he's an older gentleman. There's a nice picture of him right here. Okay, and it's not a big book. It's a very fast read. If you take the dust jacket off, you could carry this book. And I know a lot of people who are dealing with being bullied or are shy or lack of self-esteem. The last thing you need is people to see that you're reading a book about it, and that would make you even more self-conscious. So if you had this book, it just looks like a book of poetry. Nobody's going to read this. You could even cover up the spine with some tape or something if you were worried about it. It might sound petty that I'm saying, well, look, you can read this and nobody will know what you're reading. You've been harmed enough in life. The last thing you need is people. You're trying to get help. The last thing you need to do when you're getting help is to have somebody torment you even further. So it's a good book. It's a fast read. And you might say, okay, you're talking about a religious book. No, not really. Give this book a chance. Let me explain why. After Columbine, Frank Peretti felt his personal experiences needed to be discussed because he wanted to help others. So he took the time in the viewpoint that, like so many people in the culture today, these kids had nobody to turn to. They didn't have parents they could go to that would listen. They didn't have a teacher or a classmate that they could reach out to. They didn't have it. And they didn't have religion. Now, religion is not a cure-all, but religion can be an aid to help people who don't have anywhere else to turn. Now, you can call it whatever you like, but Frank Peretti's point of view was, if these kids had somewhere to go, if they would have taken the time or had the ability or the knowledge or the willpower to pray or ask for help, anything might have slowed them down. But they were adherents to, and I could be wrong on this, but this is just how the book was presented. These boys were adherents to survival of the fittest. And they believed that the strong should dominate. And they gained this because they were bullied. Throw out the religion. Throw all the dogma out. Throw all the crap out. All the philosophy out. What did these boys think? They thought, I have nowhere to turn. Only the strong dominate. Only the strong survive. Only the strong conquer. They felt condemned and oppressed. Don't put religion in it. Just tell yourself what drove these boys. They had nothing in here telling them. And it didn't have to be religion. It could have been a friend, a kind teacher, a kind relative. They had nothing telling them there's something else out there. All they knew was what they had read on their own, and they were misguided. And they needed help, and they didn't get it. They didn't get it. The system failed, and they went on a murderous rampage because they were tired of being bullied. They didn't want to be bullied anymore, and they didn't have anywhere to turn. In the parking lot, they actually had a friend walk up, a mutual friend, who was not a close friend, but a friendly student. He saw them arming themselves, and they said, "You better get out of here." Now, it's almost impossible to sit here and say anything compassionate about two murderous people who killed over 20 people, assassinated so many people. I mean, they went to great detail to hurt as many people as they could. But in the parking lot, there was a moment, a second of compassion, where they told a mutual friend, "You better get out of here. You don't want any part of this." That was the little boys talking. That was the little guy. That was what was left of the child who was tormented and bullied to this point. He was telling him to leave. And between that little boy and that moment as almost an adult, nothing stopped that chain of reaction or chain of events. And I do believe something, even reading a book or sharing some wisdom, taking the time to ask somebody, are you okay? Are you all right? How you doing today? Is everything okay? One person could have stopped that. But when it was in the parking lot, it was too late. Now, usually I don't go into religious books, or they're not religious books. The man's a good author, but he's a Christian writer. Get that out of there and listen to what he says. As a young boy getting bullied and tormented, he's ready to give up. But one day, he's had enough. But one day a teacher stopped him, one teacher, and said, hey, are you all right? You okay? You doing okay? One. Now, Frank Peretti's argument is that was it. One person stopped him. Now, he had church. He had God in his life. He had religion. He had a mom and a dad. He had both parents. He had siblings. Nothing was helping him. He was detached. But one stranger saying, hey, are you okay? You having a good day today? It set off a chain of events. And he went back and he took out a pencil and he wrote a letter. And he gave it to his gym teacher. And he said, I'm not okay. I'm not all right. I can't take this anymore. I can't go in that locker room one more day and get tormented. They sent him to the counselor. It's later in the book. He had a form from the counselor, and the counselor said, we'll just put it down as a medical reason and we'll get you out of the gym class the rest of the year. He took that paper back to the gym teacher. Gym teacher signed it. What he writes in the book is, I got my parole papers. He handed me my parole papers. And I never went back to that locker room again. His argument is, did you take the time to stop your busy day and tell another human being, are you okay? Are you all right? What's up? How you doing? And I agree with him. There's a chapter where he talks about how he felt he bullied other people later in life, or he put down people. He's not innocent. He likes to, show both sides of the argument. I found him very open-minded. This isn't rhetoric. This isn't go to church, put money in a plate, you're going to go on with the rest of your life. This book is look at the teachings, take something from it, turn around and stop what you're doing and help another human being, and there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make you a Christian. It doesn't make you a Buddhist. It doesn't make you an atheist. It means you're a human being. Stop what you're doing. Make eye contact and say, are you okay? You look like you've had enough. Is it so wrong to help another human being? I just want to read a little bit, and then we'll finish up. He couldn't take it anymore. He went to a grocery store, and he asked for deodorant for school. He had to have a deodorant. It was on his list. And he had to have this deodorant so he could go to the locker room, to gym class, get tormented even further. So he went up to a stock boy, and he asked for help because he didn't know which one to get. And the stock boy said, well, here's a good one, this spray one. The guy grabbed a can off the shelf. He took the cap off without provocation, and he sprayed the deodorant right in his face. He grabbed the deodorant, went up, checked out, tearing eyes, left the store. Never reported the kid, never told anybody, just took it. Like he'd taken things his whole life, he just took it. You're going to take it. He was shot and wounded, that's what he felt like. And he just dropped to the curb, weeping, devastated, despondent. He'd come to his end. Kind of speaking out. He tells it from first person. I'm going to read it a little differently than it is in the book. Oh, dear Lord, I prayed, still wiping the sting out of my eyes. Please, I just can't take it anymore. It felt just a little strange to be praying such a thing, because in my mind, I still linked God with all the other authorities in my life. They were all making me go through this, and so was he. You see what I'm saying? As I prayed, I was actually pleading for mercy. Please, God, please don't do this to me anymore. Don't make me go back there. Have mercy, dear Lord. I haven't fought back. I haven't snitched. I've turned the other cheek. Haven't I suffered enough? I'm reminded of God's response to Moses. Surely I have heard the cry of my people in Egypt. They'd been crying to him for the better part of 400 years. But at last it was God's time to answer. And after so long, God answered me. Okay, now here's what happens a few days later. A few days later, I faithfully and obediently stepped through the big, ominous door for another hour of boys' hell. My despair must have been showing. One of the teachers paused. He actually took just a moment and spoke quietly to me. How are you doing? You feeling okay? I looked back at him in disbelief. Somebody in authority was actually asking about me, and he seemed genuinely concerned. He wasn't even my teacher. He had other classes, other coaching duties, but he was there, and he had noticed that I was looking ill. This was so unexpected, so unusual. I didn't know what to say, or whether I should say anything at all. I was afraid of those gruff PE teachers. Not one of them had ever before asked me how I felt. I muttered some look down at the floor answer, just as an insecure boy my age might do, and he went on about his business. But the gentle tone of his voice did something to me. It gave me just the tiniest years in coming ray of hope, something I'd never felt before. Somebody really wanted to know how I was doing. Somebody might really listen. I grabbed onto that hope for all I was worth, and then suddenly an idea came to me. I didn't think I could express myself orally to a teacher who still intimidated me, but by now I knew I could write. I decided to write my gym teacher a letter. I would tell him everything, maybe this would change things. So he wrote this letter. He used the power of the pen over the sword. And he gave it to the teacher. And luckily, for that time period, because I grew up around the same time period as he did, maybe a little, he's a little older than me. His teacher didn't read it to the whole class and really have a good time. He took the kid aside, sent him to a counselor. They got him out of the class, gave him some place to go for the rest of the school year. And it was that tiniest spark that helped him with his beginning writing career. He joined drama class. He started doing school plays. He started going to sporting events and cheering on the high school team. And he went on to college and having a family of his own and becoming a very, very well-respected, very prolific writer. He writes a lot of fantasy and adventure books, but they have a Christian slant to them. But I applaud Frank Peretti for taking the time to write a book that probably wouldn't be well received in certain circles. Probably didn't make him a lot of money. He had a good thing going, and he took the time to write a true story about what it's like to be bullied. And he also wrote about how to make it stop. And he found his grace under pressure. He found his courage, his guts. And he held on to it. And he went on to do many, many great things with his life. And that's what I took from it. I know it's hard to look at somebody who's big and tall and strong and realize that we all have issues with intimidation and bullying and getting put down in life. But it's how we overcome it. Now, I may have overcome mine by being a little bit of a vindictive bastard at times. But I've always held to one thing. I never went looking to bully somebody. They usually came to me. That doesn't make it all right, but if you come looking for it, there is somebody out there who's going to reflect it back at you. It's a simple way to live. If you want people to treat you with kindness and respect, treat people with kindness and respect. It's so simple. And the nicer I am and the more I go out in the world and I try to do good things and help people, I have to admit the blessings are. I'm very grateful for everything I have. One time I was at the end of my career. I had a job that was becoming a dead end. My boss laid me off. I'm going to finish up here. My boss laid me off. He was kind of rude about it. Kind of, I'll give you a call if we need you. He expected me to go home and sit around waiting for him to call 2-3 weeks down the road for some more work. I had 2 kids at home, and it was a month, 2 weeks or a month before Christmas. It's like I was trying to get a house. I had a house lined up. I swear to God, to this day, he did it on purpose. You can't tell me. It was the ultimate bullying experience. He had me, and he knew it. He was going to lay me off. And I couldn't believe it. I got in my car. This is in 1999, I think, or 98, 99. I was driving to work. This is how desperate things were. My work car was a 1979 Volare Slant 6. Rusted out. I was desperate. Trying to get a house lined up. Putting every dime I had in the bank. And this guy lays me off right before Christmas. Put my hands on the wheel. And I put it in reverse to back out. And I stopped for just 1 second. And I said, and I know this is religious, and I know it's Christian, and I know it's everybody has, but this is what I did. This is just my experience. I had my hands on that wheel and my foot on the brake. And I said, oh God. And I never read this Frank Peretti book at that time. I was just alone, and I just said, God, if you lead me out of Egypt, I will never complain. If you get me out of here, take me out of Egypt, and I swear to God, I will never complain. And I don't know what possessed me, but a guy I worked around had told me that they might hire me where they work, because they liked the work I was doing with this contractor I was employed with at the time. Friend of a friend of a friend. And I put my car in reverse. I backed out. I drove straight to that man's office. I asked if I could meet with him for a minute, and I said, hey, remember you told me about maybe I could get an entry-level job? I could try and get a job here. Totally out of my career field. He just kind of looked at me and, okay, yeah, we'll see what we could do. A month later, it was January. I got a temporary job at that place. And then within 6 months, I was a full-time employee, benefits and everything, and I worked there for 13 years. And it was because I took the courage to stand up to bullying and fight back. And that's just one of my life's experiences with that situation. And I really hope I helped all of you today. And I know I'm not innocent. I've been a bad boy, and we've all been bad people in our lives. But I don't think people realize what they do sometimes. And the other part of the story is, I'm working at this place, and the guy calls wanting me to come back to work for him like a month later, 2 months later. And he's like, I'll give Mike a call and we'll just get him back. like, sorry, Charlie, I'm busy. Couldn't be more angry. He lost. The bully lost. He told me I'll never work with him again, never work in that field again. And I was like, hallelujah, buddy, because I moved on. Goodbye. And I'll tell you one more thing. I was so sure of myself when they offered me that job as a temp. In fact, I think I got a job a week later. I started as a temp, but it was after Christmas. Because I didn't draw an unemployment check, I don't think. Maybe I got 1 week or 2 weeks unemployment, I don't remember. But I gave my tools away. I worked there one day as a temp for $9 an hour, temping with a family of support, and I gave my tools for my previous job away. I burned that bridge right to the ground. Sometimes you just got to move on. Get busy living, or just get busy living. Thank you for joining me today. And I know this is not a typical ASMR video, but I hope it helps. And I want to let you know that I love all your comments. I love it when you take the time to give me some decent feedback, and I really appreciate it. I wish all of you peace. I hope you find your grace under pressure, your courage, your guts to move on. And I hope you have a most blessed day. Thank you. Bye-bye.